Okay. Good morning. I am Tanja Williams, and I am the superintendent of the Buffalo Public Schools. And we wanted to have a press conference this morning to answer any questions that the media might have regarding the results of a fact finder decision that we received this past Monday. On this past Monday, we received the results of the fact finder sharing what his recommendations were regarding negotiations with the BTF. I need to say that the district has remained committed to helping to ensure that all of our teachers receive a fair, competitive contract. That is what we want. That is what we have always wanted from the very start. And so here I have my negotiation team who has showed up to every meeting that we've had. I've inserted myself into negotiation meetings. This is a team that has showed up prepared and ready to negotiate. We want a contract for our teachers. We have settled 10 out of 11 contracts with different unions, different bargaining units within the district. And, you know, we won't rest until we get 11 out of 11. I have to say that the time is always right to do what is right. We want to get a contract for our teachers. I'm going to turn things over to our chief negotiator. He's our chief legal counsel, Nate Kuzma.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Williams, and good morning, members of the media. Thank you for joining us today. We figured it'd be best to get everybody together to answer all of your questions as opposed to doing a one-off with each of you individually. As Dr. Williams said, I'm Nate Kuzma, General Counsel and Chief Negotiator in BTF in these BTF negotiations. And as Dr. Williams, we have been consistent in saying that it is amongst our top priorities to settle our contract with our teachers, who are vital to the work that we're doing in this district to bring it to the next level. They show up day in and day out, to do the very difficult work that's required, in our district, and they deserve a new contract. And that is why, this past June, we, as a school district, asked the Public Employee Relations Board, PERB, to appoint a fact finder. At that point in time, we were billions of dollars apart. And to in my view, any objective person that was looking at that could see that this wasn't a situation where you meet in the middle. Compromise is often, as negotiations are, is so meet in the middle, but we could not do that in light of the Federation's position at that point in time, and we asked PERB to appoint somebody to come in and be a neutral, unbiased third party to collect evidence, hear the positions of both sides, and to render a report and recommendations on the issues. That process did play out through the fall. Both parties were permitted the opportunity to make initial submissions, to reply to the submissions of the other parties in writing with affidavits and evidence and statistics and data. And then in early January, we held a meeting with the fact finder where he asked clarifying questions of the parties, and there was the opportunity to submit additional information to him at that point in time. And the results of that process came down this past Monday. We received the results from Mr. Redden. And I want to thank the Public Employee Relations Board, for its efforts. And I want to thank Mr. Redden for his efforts. He's an experienced lawyer, a lifelong lawyer in this field. He's a local gentleman. He's very familiar, and he, if you listen to what the parties said heading into, but prior to the decision, He understood the issues. He asked good questions, and both parties were awaiting the results. And I want to thank him for his commitment and deliberation, and ultimately his recommendations, which the idea is that it would be helpful to the parties in bringing finality to this impasse. We were consistent and have been consistent all along on what our priorities were in this negotiation and what our priorities were in fact-finding. And that was providing a fair and competitive compensation package, including salaries and the like, to our teachers. They deserve raises, and we are well financed at this point in time to make an investment, a real meaningful investment that will have a tremendous impact on our 3,800 teachers and their families. Second, we prioritized health insurance. It's one of our greatest expenditures after teacher salaries. We spend $150 million in total on health insurance a year. That's about 15% of our overall budget for actives and retirees. And the market, it continues to increase in that area. And, we wanted to bring our contract more in line with what teachers in the region were contributing, and on the retiree health insurance, eliminating that for new hires, because that's a benefit that, unlike our regional peers that we have here, that they do not. Thirdly, we were presented evidence on our athletic coaches and how they are hired. We want to ensure we have a lot of great coaches in Buffalo. Certainly Bennett, Lafayette soccer, Bennett football, Lafayette soccer, two examples of that. City Honors volleyball. Great coaches. There are a lot of examples. I've just selected three, but we want to ensure that all of our student athletes have the very best, most qualified coach, teaching them in that extracurricular activity. And lastly, the bell time issue, that has been widely talked about in terms of the district's issue right now with the national bus driver shortage and the impact that that's had on Buffalo. And, we felt very strongly, and presented evidence and facts as to how that would address, changing the bell times would address that situation. And that was after we had tried a whole lot of other strategies to try to address that issue. And the fact finder took in evidence from both sides, and the BTF certainly had its priorities, and among them was wages and salary. And the fact finder made an unbiased, neutral fact finder made a recommendation based on the evidence and the facts that were submitted. And we believe now is the time, based on this decision, to settle this contract. The time is now to do this and to get it done. And there has been a lot of public sparring in regard to these issues, which in my view is not productive. It's destructive to negotiate in that way, but we feel it necessary because these issues are out in the public, and we want to be transparent when they're out in the public on how we feel, and we want to tell our story. And so, we believe this, these recommendations form the blueprint for an agreement, and it is the anchor that will anchor us in our positions moving forward. And we're really ready to move beyond the issues that were addressed by the fact finder, negotiate some of the other issues that were not addressed in that report, and get this contract done. It's to note that every day that goes by is money out of our teachers' pockets. Every day, every delay, every day you wait is money that they should have that they're not getting. We want to put money in our teachers' pockets now. We've offered a package that's valued at $225 million. That is more than double what we settled this contract for in 2016 after a 12-year impasse. So this is, we believe the entire time, this was not insulting. We made an offer that was fact-based, that was data-driven, that was fair, and that would make our district amongst one of the most competitive places in the region to come and work from a financial compensation package. And I think what you've seen in the report was a recognition and a validation of our reasonable approach this entire time. When you take an unreasonable position and you're so far out of where, even if it's a principled approach, I get it, but when you're so far outside of reality and then you continue to double down on that, it's not going to be rewarded by somebody that's neutral in looking at this from the outside. What is going to be rewarded is a commitment to fair and good faith negotiation. And that's what we're committed to doing moving forward. And I hope we can get this contract done in the immediate future because that's what our teachers deserve. Thank you.
Can you tell us more about this fact finder? Who and what are they? Who are they hired by? Are they from New York State?
Yeah, the Public Employee Relations Board, which is the body that sort of oversees the administration of the Taylor Law in New York State, appoints the fact finder, and that's selected by that individual. The parties really do not have a say in who gets selected. Each party could object if they like, if they've had a prior history or they believe there's some sort of bias based on their past employment history. Neither party did that. As I said, Mr. Redden is a local gentleman. He's a Buffalo guy. I think most of his past experience was representing unions, in his work. So, he wasn't, coming at this, but I felt that, he, throughout this process, really showed the parties that he understood, the complexity of the issues and the facts that were being submitted to him.
Do you think this will help move negotiations at all?
In my view, I can't speak for, I've sort of seen some of the comments. I would hope that it does. Hope is not, hope is not, I'd like something stronger. I mean, my expectation is that it will. The expectation was that it would. And so, like I said, we're going to anchor ourselves around this report. We feel it's very informative on the issues, like I said, from a neutral, unbiased person. And, we've committed ourselves to this process because we want a deal done, and our expectation is that it will guide us to one.
How difficult is it to negotiate this contract in the public eye?
It's not preferable. It's unorthodox. Like Dr. Williams said, we've settled 10 out of 11 others. 10 of the 11 of our union contracts, none of them were done in the public. It seems every time this one comes around, that's sort of the field that we play on. And as I've said from the beginning, those tactics will be met head on, and they will be addressed head on. And so while I'm uncomfortable with it, I don't think anybody is comfortable with it or prefers it, but we feel it's necessary at this juncture. And I hope moving forward, from this point forward, that we can stop with those sort of tactics, and really commit ourselves to doing the work that's necessary at the table to get a contract done for our teachers. That's where this really has to get done. It's not going to get done any other way. So I answered your question.
To see the results of the fact finder being pretty heavily weighted towards a lot of the proposals you guys were presenting, did that surprise you in any way? Did that please please you in the sense that going into negotiations, you'll have a heavier bag to potentially use?
Well, look, this isn't a winning or losing game, right? The win here, the success in this sort of thing is when you get a contract. We expected the result because, as I said before, we took a very reasonable, generous, fair approach to making the offer that we did. We've never denied that we're well-financed. You know, we've never denied or said that we can't afford a new contract. We've never said our teachers don't deserve a new contract. We've said everything to the contrary. And so I think what I am pleased with is that a neutral, objective third party recognized that we, as a school district, are trying to get this deal done. And we have made a great offer to our teachers to do that. And I think that's what I'm most pleased with. And I think we expected and we knew the facts and the evidence and the data supported the positions that we were taking.
So you've got this report now. What's the next step? Do you have a next date to when you'd be meeting with the union potentially to discuss these findings?
No, not at this point, and I expect that we will within the next several weeks, at least set some dates to meet again. The next step for us is we're going to be speaking with our board tonight. They're not here because they need to be briefed by us, and we will discuss what, if any, step they take moving forward, and certainly we will be seeking their superintendent and I and our team will be seeking their guidance and advice on how they would like us to proceed in light of this report. They do have it, and I think we look forward to that discussion with our Board of Education tonight. And then we're going to go from there.
Do you think this will put pressure on the negotiating committee from the rank and file of the teachers when they hear the results of this?
I'm not going to speak for the teachers, I think, as I said, teachers, they deserve a contract, and every day that goes by is a day they don't have one, and a day that they don't have, additional resources in their pockets for their families. And, I hope both parties recognize that and come to the table to get this done.
Is the lack of a contract affecting recruiting and hiring new teachers or keeping more valuable teachers to you, experienced teachers?
I'm going to just defer to our Chief of Human Resources, Tammy Holly McGee, who would be the best person to answer that question.
Thank you for that question. It's extremely important that we settle this contract in hopes that we can attract and keep our very, very strong, committed teachers in our Buffalo Public Schools. So that has been a major factor in ensuring that we come to the table reasonably, fair, and with good, sound business acumen to make sure that we keep the district in a good financial spot, but also make sure that our teachers are fairly and competitively compensated.
Is the uncertainty affecting you in hiring new teachers or keeping ones you have from leaving for other districts?
It's from both ends, actually, yes. It's from both ends. We do a strong recruiting effort to try to bring in new teachers, and we hear from them that, they're very concerned about the fact that there's no contract for the teachers in our district currently. So all we can say is that we're trying to come to the table with a fair and a competitive contract. So we're trying to get that communication out as we are recruiting. And then we also want our teachers that we have still on board and are committed to our students to know that we are committed to coming up with a reasonable and a fair contract for them.
Nate, that gap you mentioned being so large when negotiations started, has it made any headway to a smaller gap? Where does that kind of stand as far as 8% raises impacting teacher hiring?
And interestingly, we, as the superintendent said, she's been on the job since July. She came to the table, I think, starting around September. Even during fact-finding, we were still trying to negotiate and wanted to get a deal done before we got this report, you know, if that was possible. But the you know, we were still about, you know, as you'll see in the report, 1.4 billion apart. And so, like I said, it wasn't one of those, well, we can just meet in the middle here, you know, and understanding that what that it would mean financial devastation, you know, not only to our school district, but the city of Buffalo, state of New York, who we rely on, so, you know, almost exclusively for our funding. And so it, like I said, I had expected that there would be sort of a shift, and I hope that, you know, as we all reflect on this document and what a neutral, objective third party says, that there will be a change in mindset, you know, and a change in position, you know, the next time we meet, you know, that brings us closer together.
And not saying you won't be able to reach a contract, but if you aren't able to, what other options are left for you with this fact finder's report seeming to be, you know, in advanced stage?
This is the end of the line. As I said, we're now ready to move beyond, and, you know, we consider these issues to be mostly resolved. Of course, we will sit down and talk, you know, and negotiate, but we're ready to settle this. There is no end with these things. There is no real other step. Nobody can come in and enforce terms on the parties. It's up to the parties to get a deal done. You know, now PERB may send in what's called a super conciliator, which is just another a fancy way to say another mediator to try to have conversations with the parties. But that's about it. Other than that, it's up to us. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.